Evening, friends. Tyler Grant here at jamplay.com. Welcome to week 4 of our live lesson series on playing over chord changes in open position, part 2. Now, week 4 has been transplanted to this week because last week we had some serious weather here in Colorado, what they're calling the bomb cyclone. It really was not the night to drive from Denver up to Fort Collins. So tonight we're going to do lesson 4, week 4 and 5 back to back. So here's the first hour installment, week 4, and we're going to be in the key of E major. Now, E major is an open position scale that I really enjoy playing out of. Your set of open strings is totally different than the C scale and the G scale. You're working out of this position and you have a lot of notes on the 4th fret, so there's some reaches in this E major scale, which will take a little bit of getting used to if you haven't done much of this. But once you get your independence of your fingers really strong, getting around the E scale is just as easy as getting around all the other open position scales. So we're going to keep it simple as far as the changes go. It's going to be a 1 chord, which is an E major chord, and a 4, A major, and a 5, which is a B7. Okay, everyone know that B7 chord? Back to 1. So it's just the primary chords in the key of E. 1 to the 4. Go ahead and strum along any kind of rhythm you like. The 5. Back to 1. That's the whole form. Let's repeat it. Here's the 1 chord, the 4 chord, 5 chord, back to 1. Okay? So like I said, any rhythm will do. The examples that I use are this kind of like country, bluegrass-ish, folky boom strum, just because that's kind of the rhythm that my life lives with. But again, what we're going for here is the information, the melodic information. We're only concerned with which notes work over which chords, okay? So let's start with the E major scale, and let's have a look at the notation. So here we go. Your low E string is your tonic note, obviously. That's an E note, so that's 1 of the scale. And the notes of the scale will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, it's awkward for me. Either octave, either too low or too high. So, so there, just to briefly recap on what we do with singing the scale degrees. This is how I understand melodic information. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, associating the scale degree to that pitch. So whenever I practice these scales, that's how I sing them along with the notes I'm playing. Because you want to memorize those sounds. Getting to know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. Knowing that, you could take the same thing and play it in the key of C, for instance. 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you'd know that it's the exact same melody, and you can transpose and be free of any restrictions of wondering what key you're in or being concerned about what key you're in. That's why I love singing the scale degrees and memorizing that it's always the same sound no matter what key you are in, and you can easily transpose that same information, that same lick, over to this other key. So everything we're doing in this lesson is the same thing we've been doing in each previous lesson. We're just moving it to a new key and incorporating a couple different little melodic ideas. Okay, so let's practice an E major scale, and let's just play one note at a time. Don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about anything right now. Let's just play the notes. This is your low E string. Open. That's 1. Now your second finger plays the 2nd fret. That's 2. Your 4th finger will play the 4th fret. That's 3. Okay? And you can shift your hand up a little bit if you can't reach that way. My fingers are long and I can reach them all. But if you move your hand up to reach that note with your 4th fret, that's fine. Then you can move back when you get to the other notes. So there you go. That's the 3rd open A string. 4, it's the 4th note of the scale. And then B on the 2nd fret. 5, that's the 5th note. 4th finger will play the 4th fret. That's 6. And then your 1st finger will play the 1st fret of the D string. 7, that's the leading tone. And then you resolve to 1 E. Okay? So let's descend that scale. 1, descend to your 1st finger. 7, down to your 4th finger. 6, down to your 2nd finger. 5, open A string. 4, 4th finger on the 4th fret. Low E. 3, 2nd finger on the 2nd fret. 2, open E. 1. Okay? Great. Let's do that one more time. We'll ascend from the low E string. Here we go. 1. And then the 2nd finger plays 2. 4th finger plays 3. Open A is 4. 2nd fret B is 5. 4th fret C sharp is 6. 1st fret D sharp, 7. 2nd finger, 1. There you go. There's 1 octave of the scale. So let's continue up the 2nd octave. So here's 1, same note. And then 4th finger to the 4th fret. 2, same thing, an octave higher. 1st finger, 3. 2nd finger, 4. Open B. 5. 2nd finger, 2nd fret. 6. 4th finger, 4th fret. 7. Open E. 1. There you go. You just did a whole higher octave of the scale. And there's your tonic note, your open high E string. You got a couple higher notes. So let's play those real quick. There's 1, 2nd finger on the 2nd fret. 2, 4th finger. 3, right back down to 2. 2, open E. 1. Great. Now we descend, right? We descend the whole thing. So here's 1. 1, 4th finger. 7, 2nd finger. 6, open B. 5, A, 4, 1st finger, G sharp. 3, 4th finger. 2, down to your 2nd finger. 1. Okay. Now we have a whole octave yet to go. So here's 1, descending. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Remember, it doesn't matter what octave you sing as long as you're matching the pitches. And you can recognize that 3, 2, 1 is the same as 3, 2, 1 is the same as 3, 2, 1. No matter what octave, you know it's that same information. Okay, so now let's look at the examples, starting with 3-note figures that outline the 1 chord. And these are the same figures we've done over each other chord so far. Starting on the tonic. So, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. That's that melody. Let's try that example and we'll repeat it. So the rhythm is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that's the timing of it. The notes are 1, 2, 3 of the scale. And those are 2 of your 3 chord tones. So when you play this, it sounds like you're on the 1 chord. Here we go. Ready and a slow and repeat and. Great. Now we got the 3rd going up to the 5th of the scale. 5, 4, 3. Okay, so let's try that one. A ready and a slow and repeat and. Great, still sounds like the 1 chord. Now we start on the 5th and go up to the 6 and then skip from the 6 right to the 1. 1, 6, 5, 5, 6, 1, 1, 6, 5. And that's right, I'm still using this position. 2nd finger on the 2nd fret, 4th finger on the 4th fret. You could shift to this position, especially if you're doing anything pentatonic related, because you can get away with that. But doing this particular scale that we're playing, you're going to eventually need that 1st fret. Right there and right there. So you better stay in open position. Okay, there's that lick. Let's try it. Ready and a slow and repeat and. Great. The last example is just like we've done in previous weeks, an alternate version of this. 6, 7, 1, and then 1, 6, 5, okay? 6, 7, 1, 1, 6, 5. Still sounds like a 1 chord. Let's try that. A ready and a go and repeat and. Great. Okay, so those are the figures that outline the 1 chord. Remember, you got to know these in every octave. Might have to think about it for a second, but you can do that. I'm going to shift a position there. Okay, so we don't have time in the hour to go through all that. If you have the time on your own, I'd highly recommend transposing all of these ideas to different octaves. We will play those figures in the examples coming up either way, okay? So here we go to the 4 chord, 3-note figures that outline the A chord, the 4, in the key of E. So obviously we're going to start on the tonic, or the root note of the A chord, and play that same figure as we did over the E. So I'm temporarily thinking about that particular chord, the A chord, which is the 4. So you could think 4, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4. But I'm just thinking 1, 2, 3 of the A chord. Okay? And I know that that's the 4 of my E scale, so I can easily get myself back down to the tonic when I get back to that chord. Okay? But we're not changing keys. The notes that we're using are all exactly the same set of notes as we played in the E scale. So that's the 1, 2, 3 of an A chord. Let's try that example. A ready and a slow and Great. Next little example is the same as we did before. Now we're going 3, 4, 5 of the chord 5, 4, 3. Okay? And it's the same fingering even as we used on the E chord, just on a different string set here. Fourth finger to the open string to the second finger, and then back down to the fourth. Okay? So let's try that. Ready and a slow and repeat and great. So now moving up to the 5, 6, 1 of the A chord. Okay, just like we did on the E. Okay, here we go. Ready and slow and repeat and okay, now here's the last one. Again, it's that little alternate version. And the 6, 7, 1 of the chord. 1, 6, 5. Here we go. Ready and a slow and repeat and great. So those are the figures for the A chord. Remember to go up an octave. That's about all you can do on that one. Okay? Great. Moving on to the 5 chord. The B7. So we're going to start on the tonic and go to the 3rd, right back down. 1, 2, 3 of the B7 chord. Here we go. Ready and a slow and repeat and great. So now you start on the 3rd and go 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3. Let's try that. Ready and a go and repeat and okay. And now we have a 3rd figure for the 5/7 chord. The 5 dominant 7th has an extra note. 1, 3, 5, 7. It's got a flatted 7. So this figure targets that flatted 7. It goes from the 5 to the 6 to the flatted 7 of the B chord. So let's try that 3rd figure there on the B7 3-note figures. Ready and a go and repeat and okay. And for our last figure, this is a neat one because we get to use an open B string. You'd normally see that in like a little pentatonic pattern. But we got that open B, so we might as well use it. So it's the 5th, the 7th, and the tonic of the chord. Okay, let's play that figure. Ready and a slow and and repeat, and. Okay, so that's all the chords. So you see what we're getting at? We're going to do an example where there's these little licks strewn together, and you can hear those little ideas we're going to string together in this way where you can hear the changes going by. And we do have a rhythm track that will play along with it as well. Take a pause for questions. Any questions coming in yet?
No questions yet.
Not even about the bomb cyclone?
Not even about the bomb cyclone. I do want to remind everybody that as soon as we're done with this session, we're going to take just a short 10-minute break, and then we'll be back with week 5 right after that. Right after that short break, so make sure you stick around for that. All kinds of fun tonight.
All kinds of changes in open position and useful licks, useful ideas. That's the theme of this, is to get the simplest idea and know how to work it. And these are the same exact figures that make up most of the licks that you hear people play. You got to know how to use these scale figures and how to get around the changes. From there, you can branch out and do anything you want with improvisation. Okay, so looking at example number 1, we're going to start with the first figure from an E chord, and the rhythm here is... So it's 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4. Same for every measure, so you can just focus on the notes. And the last figure is the one we started with, an octave higher. Okay, so that's the only thing you haven't played yet. Second finger there. 1, 2, 3 of the scale. Right back down. 3, 2, 1. So there's the first line of this example. It's just the first figure from each chord consecutively. Then we got a page turn, and here's the second half of it, starting on the third of the E chord and playing this figure. Third, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3 of the E major chord, okay? From there, you got your A note and your A chord. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1 of an A major chord. You can use your same finger for both fretted notes. So you could play that A note with your second finger, and then of course the open B string. And then you can use your second finger again for that same fret on the B string and back down, or as you saw me do, you can use a different finger. That would be a shift, because then you're lined up with an A chord and you can do nice things with it. So that's why I would do that and shift my position instead of using the same finger. But you can do either one. So then moving on to the B7. Open B string, up to the third of the B7 chord, and then descending. And then we're back to the open E string. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. So same thing, we've used that same lick in 3 different octaves in this example. Okay? So let's try this really slow with the rhythm track. This is 35 beats per minute. Your 1, 4, 5, 1 chords in the key of E with example number 1. So watch for the page turn. Just realize the next measure, after that fourth measure, you're going to the third of the E chord. So that's what I'm going to remember when we get to that page turn. Here we go. From the top. 1, 2. Ready and go and. repeat, back to the low E string. Okay, good work. So you got some of those stretches with your pinky, but again, like I said, you'll get so used to that that you can just get around that scale just like any other. So let's try that example now at 47 beats per minute. This will just be a little bit faster. Here we go. A 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4, and... Let's repeat the whole exercise. Low E. Open Great. So now I will kind of demonstrate my own improvisation based on these figures. So I might deviate from the rhythm a little bit, but I'm going to try to keep it kind of similar so you recognize all of these same figures throughout the improvisation, okay? So just listen, I'll put on the track. Maybe I'll go a little faster just for fun. This will be 60 beats per minute. A 1, a 2. So this is just what you can do with this once you know these figures. 3, 4. Okay, so say, well, that's not the language that I'm into. You know, I don't play this kind of folky, bluegrassy, flat picking kind of style, okay? So say you want to get more bluesy or more jazzy. I'm going to use these same figures and demonstrate how to use some little connecting notes to the same figures to make them sound a little more bluesy, a little more jazzy, a little more chromatic, okay? The point I'm making here, and I hope there's light bulbs going off for some of you, that you have to know the basic information to branch out and be able to improvise in all styles, okay? If you don't know that, then you can't play, you know what I mean? And do it effectively and know exactly what you're doing. So that's why these figures are so important. So I'll string together some chromatic notes and some other things that might make this sound a little more sort of fancy and outside the box, okay? A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. So, yeah, that's how you do it. You kind of got to know vocabulary and know licks, but unless you know this information of how to string together simple ideas and work them through chord changes, then you don't have much of a foundation to translate all of these other licks and things that you've learned into. So for me, it's these simple little figures. Now, again, you could do this in a full like rock and roll kind of rhythm. You could work these through jazz figures, but if you're a jazz player, you're already kind of working other chords than this. This is meant to be a really basic exercise that players of all level can build upon and just get that much more grounded in the way they play over changes and be mindful and aware of what chord you're on, which notes are sounding good, and why. Okay, and for me, it's all just really fun and really simple, and it takes this kind of exploration and just a little bit every day of that kind of reminder of where those scale degrees are until it becomes automatic, until it becomes built in, which it is for me. It took a while to get there, but I use this so much now, performing, jamming with people, doing instructional things like this. I use it so much that it's just in there and it'll never go away. So, make those small little increments of improvement and memorize these ideas, at least one of these lessons. You see that we're doing the same thing in every different key. So once you know all your different keys, you just take the same material and apply it. And you can do this with your own ideas, your own rhythm tracks. But all you Jam Play members, obviously you have access to these downloads. You have access to the guided practice sessions where we just go through these figures one after another. And you can play along at slow tempo and gradually increase it, and you'll master these little ideas. And then if you just want to come up with your own ideas, great. Just make sure they make sense musically. If you don't know if they make sense, just do this, okay? So we have about 15 minutes left in this lesson. And then all of those of you following us live, remember we're going to do one more right after this, week 5. Are there any questions in the chat room yet?
There are no questions. They must
everyone's
all
just
be
paying
understanding
such
this.
close
Yes.
attention.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Everyone is rapt and fascinated. Okay, so moving on to, and remember, the point I'm trying to make is that this is fun. Once you get some of this stuff down, it's really, really fun. This is the way I play. This is the way I think of melodies. I break them down into these little segments, and these are always spinning in my head. So you can't really spend too much time on this kind of thing. So let's check out example number 2. These last two systems here. So just variations on what we did in the first example. Starting on the 5th. That's a great melody right there. It's the 5, 6, 1 of the E chord, 1, 6, 5. Those of you who have studied with me know that this is what I call the most important lick in guitar improvisation. No matter what context you're in. You're playing the 5 and the 1, and you got anything you want in between them. Or above it. Okay? So there it is, and then your next measure, starting on the closest note that we could get to, ascending, okay? So we're ascending from that first idea up to this next one, just going up one note of the scale and playing the figure that is appropriate to the A chord, the 4 chord. Okay, and then moving on to the next note higher than this one, that corresponds to the B7 chord. That's the 3rd of the B7 chord. Up to the 5th and back down to the 3rd. And we'll resolve to the tonic, E, and play that figure that we played in the last example. Then moving on, we're going to skip from the 3rd up to the 5th. Now that's the same figure we started with, an octave higher. 5, 5, 6, 1, 1, 6, 5. A lot of mileage you can get out of that lick. You get it. So that's the first measure of the last system. Then the next measure, the 3rd to last measure of the whole thing. I'm just moving the same figures up an octave from where we began. So that's the 3rd of the A chord, going up to the 5th, back to the 3rd, and then the B7. Starting on the 3rd, going up to the 5th, again an octave higher than the one we did a few measures ago. And then we got this 2 figures put together to descend from the high E string down to the 5th, and then from the 5th down to the 3rd. That's the last measure, okay? So let's take this really slow with the track. 35 beats per minute, and give it a shot. Here we go.
1.
Example number 2.
2.
A 3 and a 4 and. Repeat. That one's real pretty, I think. That could be a song, you know. That could be just a little melody of a song. This is how songs work, is they use these same type of figures. So let's go through that one while it's fresh in our minds at 47 beats per minute, just one little tick faster. Here we go. A 1, a 2, a 3, and a go, and... Okay, now I just came up with a good idea. Let's say this is the melody of a song, okay? I'll play this melody, and I will answer it with little licks that continue or kind of a call and response, question and answer type of phrasing, okay? So I'll demonstrate. Same tempo, just listen. Each of these little melodies, I'll answer it with something. 3 and 4 and... Okay, it was a valiant effort. I got a few of them in there. So that's the idea. This is how you build on this type of phrasing. Use it to incorporate one lick into another. These are just meant to be strengthening your foundation as an improviser and playing over changes. So have a good time with all of these exercises. We've got a couple minutes left if there's any questions. If not, I'm just going to crank up the tempo here and play you out with some of these examples and some of my own improvisations with the ideas. Okay, here we go. See you in about 10 minutes for the next lesson. Here we go, 60, I'm going to go 75 beats per minute, and I'm just going to jam using these figures, okay? A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's where you're heading. No matter what the language is, like I said, there's something to be gained from this. Hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you coming up here in the 7 o'clock hour Mountain, 9 o'clock hour Eastern, okay, for part 5, week 5 of playing over changes in opposition.
And I'll just mention, if you can't make it for the hour that's coming up, remember, next week we'll be back at the regular time for the final week of playing over chords part 2.
Okay, thanks everybody. See you soon.